Hello campers, families, and friends. It's Sarah at Ben's Nature Camp. I've got my marshmallow ready to roast, and it's Friday, which means we're ready for another week of Campfire Stories. Now, as you can tell, it's not actually Friday when I'm filming this, but if you've been watching our video series this week, then you know that our theme has been the night sky. So I thought it would be appropriate to film this week's campfire story after dark. The sun is just set behind me at my house, and it's only going to get darker from here. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself though. Before we go any further, we're going to make sure to take our weekly pause to reflect on the week that's just passed. I hope that you have a lot of favorite memories to choose from. Mine was getting out in the garden this weekend when the weather was warmer, checking on some of the early plants I put in like spinach and onions, and just digging in the dirt and getting my hands dirty got me really excited for the coming growing season. Now it's your turn. Go ahead and share what your favorite memory was from this week. As I mentioned earlier, our theme this week for our video series has been the night sky. Stars and constellations, and we've even met some of the animals that inhabit this nighttime world. And tonight's stories are going to talk about some of those things. Stargazing is one of my favorite things to do, and if you can identify constellations, that is a very cool skill to have that not that many people have anymore. A long time ago, people counted on the stars to help them find their way. And so picking out stars, though, in the night sky can be really hard. There's so many to choose from, and how do you remember which one you need to look for? They looked for patterns, what we know today to be constellations. So constellations, the amazing thing about them is people all over the world have looked up at our night skies and seen some of those same patterns. But the stories that they've created about those different shapes that they've seen really vary. One of the most recognizable constellations that we know of is the Big Dipper. It's called the Big Dipper because it looks like a really long-handled soup spoon. And the Big Dipper is actually only just a small part of the constellation Ursa Major, which means Great Bear. The amazing thing about that constellation is there are a lot of cultures around the world who have seen a bear in that shape of stars. So there are many stories about a great bear that go along with that particular constellation. But tonight, I'm going to tell a story that's a little bit different and introduces a different animal. And that story comes to us from Keepers of the Earth, the original book in this series of compiled Native American stories by Michael Caduto and Joseph Bruchac. And our story is called, I just heard a barred owl. That's not what our story is called. Our story is actually called How Fisher Went to the Skyland, the Origin of the Big Dipper. And it comes to us from the Anishinaabe people of the Great Lakes region. Fisher was a great hunter. He was not big, but he was known for his determination and was regarded as one with great power. Fisher's son wanted to be a great hunter also. One day his son went out to try and catch something. It was not easy, for the snow was very deep. It was very cold everywhere. In those days, it was always winter on the earth, and there was no such thing as warm weather. Fisher's son hunted a long time with no luck. Finally, though, he saw a squirrel. As quietly as he could, he sneaked up and then pounced, catching the squirrel between his paws. But before he could kill it, the squirrel spoke to him. "Grandson," said the squirrel, "don't kill me. I can give you some good advice." "Speak then," said the young fisher. "I see you are shivering from the cold. If you do what I tell you, we may enjoy warm weather. Then it will be easy for all of us to find food and not starve as we are doing now." "Tell me what to do, grandfather," the young fisher said, letting the squirrel go. The squirrel quickly climbed up onto a high branch and then spoke again. "Go home and say nothing. Just sit down in your lodge and begin to weep. Your mother will ask you what is wrong, but you must not answer her. If she tries to comfort you or give you food, you must refuse it. When your father comes home, he will ask you why you are weeping. Then you can speak. Tell him the winds are too cold and the snow is too deep. Tell him that he must bring warm weather to the earth. So the young fisher went home. He sat in the corner of the lodge and cried. His mother asked what was wrong, but he did not answer. She offered him food, but he pushed it away. Then his father returned and saw his son weeping and went to his side. What is wrong, son? Fisher said. Then the young fisher said what the squirrel had told him to say. I am weeping because the wind is too cold and the snow is too deep. We are all starving because of the winter. I want you to use your powers to bring the warm weather. The thing you are asking of me is hard to do, said Fisher, but you are right. I will do all I can to grant your wish. Then Fisher had a great feast. He invited all of his friends and told them what he needed to do. I am going to go to the place where the skyland is closest to the earth, he said. There in the skyland, they have all the warm weather. I intend to go there and bring some of that warm weather back. Then the snow will go away and we will have plenty to eat. All of Fisher's friends were pleased and offered to go with him. So when Fisher set out, he took the strongest of his friends along, the otter, the lynx, and Wolverine. The four of them traveled for a long time through the snow. They went toward the mountains higher and higher each day. At last, after many days, they came to the highest mountain and climbed to the top. The sky was very close above them, but they had to find some way to break through into the land above. We must jump up, said Fisher. Who will go first? I will try, said Otter. He leapt up and struck the sky, but did not break through. Instead, he fell back and slid on his belly all the way to the bottom of the mountain. To this day, all otters slide like that in the snow. Now it's my turn, said Lynx. He jumped too, striking hard against the sky and falling back unconscious. Fisher tried then, but even he did not have enough power. Now it's your turn, Fisher said to Wolverine. You are the strongest of us all. Wolverine leapt. He struck hard against the sky and fell back, but he did not give up. He leaped again and again until he had made a crack in the sky. Once more he leaped and finally broke through. Fisher jumped through the hole in the sky after him. The skyland was a beautiful place. It was warm and sunny, and there were plants and flowers of all kinds growing. They could hear the singing of birds all around them, but they could see no people. They went farther and found many lodges. When they looked inside, they found there were cages in the lodges. Each cage held a different bird. These will make for fine hunting, said Fisher. Let us set them free. Quickly, Wolverine and Fisher trewed through the rawhide that bound the cages together and freed the birds. The birds all flew down through the hole in the sky. To this day, there are many kinds of birds in the world. Wolverine and Fisher now began to make the hole in the skyland bigger. The warmth of the skyland began to fall through the hole, and the land below began to grow warmer. The snow on Earth began to melt, and the grass and the plants beneath the snow turned green. But the Sky People came out when they saw what was happening. They ran toward Wolverine and Fisher, shouting loudly. Thieves, they shouted. Stop taking our warm weather. Wolverine jumped back through the hole to escape, but Fisher kept making the hole bigger. He knew that if he didn't make it big enough, the Sky People would quickly close the hole again, and it would be winter down below on Earth. He chewed the hole larger and larger. Finally, when the Sky People were very close, he stopped. The hole was big enough for warm weather for half the year to escape through, but it was not big enough for all the warm weather to last all year long. That is why winter still comes back every year. Fisher knew that the Sky People might try to close the hole in the sky. He had to take their attention away from it, and so he taunted them. I am Fisher the Great Hunter, he said. You cannot catch me. Then he ran to the tallest tree in the skyland. The Sky People chased after him. just as they were about to grab him, he leapt into the tree and climbed to the highest branches where no one could reach. At first, the Sky People didn't know what to do. Then they began to shoot arrows at him, but Fisher wasn't hurt, for he had special powers. There was only one place on his tail where an arrow could kill him. Finally, though, the Sky People guessed where his magic was and shot that place. An arrow struck the fatal spot. Fisher turned over on his back and began to fall. But Fisher never struck the earth. Gitchy Manitou, the creator, took pity on him because Fisher had kept his promise and done something to help all people. Gitchy Manitou then placed Fisher high up in the sky among the stars. If you look up into the sky, you can still see him, even though some people call that pattern of stars the Big Dipper. Every year, Fisher crosses the sky. When the arrow strikes him, he rolls over onto his back in the winter sky. But then, when winter is almost ended, he faithfully turns to his feet and starts out once more on his long journey to bring the warm weather back to the earth. The next time you're out at night and have a chance to look up at the stars, try finding the Big Dipper, and then use your imagination and try to see the Fisher up there instead, with his two paws and 2 points on his back being the cup of the Big Dipper, and then his long tail being the handle. Our next story is not actually about any constellations, but it is about an animal that we hardly ever see because it comes out at night. But when we do, it's really lucky to get to see it. People told stories a long time ago to help them understand the world around them. They saw these nocturnal animals and thought they had magical powers or superpowers. Today we call those adaptations. But those special powers help them to survive in the darkest time of the day, nighttime. So this story is from Keepers of the Night, the 4th book in our collection from Michael Caduto and Joseph Bruchac. And it is called How the Bat Came to Be. It's also from the Anishinaabe, but from the eastern woodlands. Long ago, as the sun began to rise one morning, he came too close to earth and became tangled in the top branches of a tall tree. The harder Sun tried to escape, the more he became caught, and so dawn did not come. At first, the birds and animals did not notice. Some woke, then went back to sleep thinking they had been mistaken, and it was not yet time to wake. Other animals, which loved the night, like the panther and the owl, were happy that it remained dark and continued to hunt. But after a while, so much time had passed that all the birds and animals knew something was wrong. They gathered together in the dark to hold a council. Sun has become lost, the eagle said. We must search for him, said the bear. So all the birds and animals began to look for the sun. They looked in caves and in the deep forest, and on mountains and in the swampy lands. But Sun was not there. None of the birds or animals were able to find Sun. Then one of the animals, a small brown squirrel, had an idea. Perhaps Sun is caught in a tall tree, he said. Then the small brown squirrel began to go from tree to tree, going further and further toward the east. At last, in the top of a very tall tree, he saw a glow of light. He climbed up and saw that it was Sun. Sun's light was pale, and he looked weak. Help me, little brother, Sun said. The small brown squirrel came close and began to chew at the branches in which Sun was caught. The closer he came to Sun, the hotter it became. The more branches he chewed to free, the brighter Sun's light grew. I must stop now, said the small brown squirrel. My fur is burning. It is all turning black. Help me, said Sun. Do not stop now. The small squirrel continued to work, but the heat of the sun was very great now, and it was even brighter. My tail is burning away, said the small squirrel. I can do no more. help me," said Sun. "Soon I will be free." So the small brown squirrel continued to chew, but the light of the sun was very bright now. "I am growing blind," said the small squirrel. "I must stop." "Just a little more," said Sun. "I'm almost free." Finally, the squirrel chewed the last of the branches. As soon as he did so, Sun broke free and rose up into the sky. Dawn spread across the land, and it was day again. All over the world, the animals and birds were happy. But the small squirrel was not happy. He was blinded by the brightness of the sun. His long tail had been burned away, and what fur he had left was now all black. His skin had even stretched from the heat, and he clung there to the top branches of the tree, which had held the sun, unable to move. Up in the sky, Sun looked down and saw the small squirrel. It had suffered so much to save him. Sun felt great pity, and he spoke. "Little brother," said Sun, "you have helped me. Now I will give you something. Is there anything that you have always wanted?" "I have always wanted to fly," said the small squirrel. "But I am blind now, and my tail has been burned away." Sun smiled. "Little brother," he said, "from now on, you will be an even better flyer than the birds. Because you came so close to me, my light will always be too bright for you. But you will see in the dark, and you will hear everything around you as you fly. From this time on, you will sleep when I rise into the sky, and when I say goodbye to the world each evening, you will wake." Then the small animal, which had been a squirrel, dropped from the branch, spread its leathery wings, and began to fly. He no longer missed his tail and his brown fur, and he knew that when night came again, it would be his time. He could not look at the sun, but he held the joy of the sun in his heart. And so it was, long ago, that Sun showed his thanks to the small brown squirrel, who was a squirrel no longer, but the first of the bats. I hope that as the weather gets warmer, you get to spend more and more time outside, and make special time to get out there at night and appreciate all of the wonders of the nighttime world that we don't normally get to experience, from the nocturnal activities of animals to the distant beauty of the stars. There is so much to explore if we take the time to do it. And on that note, I'm going to roast my marshmallow and say goodbye and thank you for joining me. And I look forward to welcoming you back next week for more Campfire Stories.